Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mir Hashem today we will be learning Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos, and we pick up today on the very bottom line of Lamed Vav Amud Beis Siman Reish Samach Gimel Sif Vav. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasunim Batzara Ubashivya Ha'imdim Bein bayam ubein bayabasha hamakim yirachem aleihem v'yitziah mitzar l'rvacha me'afela la'ira mishiba l'geula hashta bagala uvizman kariv v'naymar amen. So, we've been learning here in Siman Reish Samach Gimel the halachos of Hadlakas Neiros. Today we have a very, very, very complex page to learn over here in the Dirshu schedule, Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. The truth is that the true depth of this sugya that we're going to be learning today is a little bit really beyond the scope of what we do here in the Dirshu share. I'm going to try to attack it and give you the basics, kind of like, I'm not going to say 30,000 feet, but maybe 15,000 feet. There's more nitty-gritty that lies under the surface. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go into that great depth. Now, in order to properly understand the halachos that we're going to learn today, we need a little bit of a background on the sugya of Hadlakas Neiros based on what we've learned already so far. So, back in Sif Beis, we learned in the Mechaber that Echad ha'anoshim ve'echad ha'noshim chayavim lihiyos bebatehem ner dolok b'Shabbos. The chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros is not a chiyuv on women. It's not a chiyuv placed on a woman that women have a mitzvah to light neiros. No, there's a chiyuv of neiros Shabbos. The closest I can get to giving you a comparison is the chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros Shal Chanukah. And indeed, in many ways in halacha, there are direct comparisons made between neiros Shabbos and ner Chanukah. Now, the mitzvah of ner Chanukah is ner ish ubeisai. It's basically, to a certain extent, a chiyuv on the home. The home has to have a ner Chanukah in it. Now, that chiyuv is a chiyuv haguf. You have an obligation. You have a mitzvah that you have to accomplish the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. Usually, the way you're mekayim the mitzvah is your wife goes ahead and makes a berachah and lights Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. And because we said in Sif Gimel, Hanoshim Muzharois Ba Yoiser, this is a chiyuv that's on the home, so the wife is the one who makes the bracha and lights the neiros. And by doing so, she is doing that for you as well. You are mekayim your chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos by virtue of the fact that your wife makes the bracha and she lights the neiros in the home. Now, why do we have a mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos? So we saw that one inyan of Neiros Shel Shabbos is oinig v'simcha. We saw that when you eat the Suda, there's an inyan of oinig and simcha to have harbe neiros, to have a lot of light, ribui or, by the Suda. We also saw that there's an inyan of shalom bayis. What does shalom bayis mean? We have to have a peaceful ambiance and environment in the home. We don't want people walking around and stepping on Lego or stubbing their toes on the bed frames and on the legs of the couches. That makes everybody grumpy. So there's a chiyuv of shalom bayis that the house has to be well lit over Shabbos. So we have a chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos, which is a chiyuv aguf. You have to see to it that you're mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. We also have this inyan of oinig v'simcha, that there should be a lot of light by the Suda. We also have this inyan of shalom bayis, that there has to be peace throughout the house. We have to have a well-lit house so that people aren't stumbling around and getting hurt and becoming grumpy on Shabbos. Now, like we said, in a normal scenario, this is all very straightforward. Ruvain is married to Rachel. They have a house together. Ruvain has a chiyuv of Neiros Shel Shabbos. Rachel also has a chiyuv of Neiros Shel Shabbos. There's a chiyuv of Neiros Shel Shabbos on the home. So Ruvain is carrying a chiyuv haguf. He has to be mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. He also has to fulfill the requirements of Oinig Shabbos and of Shalom Bayis. So now, okay, somebody has to go light. Not each individual person has to go light. Somebody has to go light. So Leah, the wife, the woman of the household, Noshim Musharis B'Yoser, she goes over to the licht, she makes the berachah, she lights the Neiros. By doing so, she patters Ruvain from his chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros as well. Now, we also learned, and this is a chiddush to some people, but since one of the inyanim of Neiros Shel Shabbos is Shalom Bayis, it's necessary that there should be Neiros in every room. Now, we don't put Neiros in every room. The reason we don't put Neiros in every room is because our houses are not dark. We have so much light pollution nowadays. There's light coming in from all over the place. The only time you really experience true dark is when it's towards the end of the month and the moon is very small and there's a blackout. Then you find out what true dark is, and you finally find out that your house really is pitch black. But nowadays our homes are not pitch black. So we don't put a nair in every room because Shalom Bayis doesn't require us to have a nair in every room. Our rooms are not dark enough. But there is that chiyuv. So now, let's imagine the following scenario. Let's imagine somebody lives out, somebody has an off-the-grid cabin, and he has no electricity. So his house is very dark, and he has a 3-bedroom home. So now, it comes Erev Shabbos, it's time to sin Shabbos licht. The wife is going to go to the leichter in the dining room, she's going to make a berachah, and she's going to light the neiros in the dining room by the dining room table. Okay, once she does that, the husband no longer has a chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos because the wife already pattered him. She lit the Neiros Shel Shabbos of the home, and she pattered him from his chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. But now, the bedroom upstairs that doesn't have a nair in it, that still needs a nair. Okay, does the wife have to go light that nair? No, the husband could go light that nair. Does the husband have to make a berachah when he lights that nair? No, he doesn't have to make a berachah. Why? Because when the wife made a berachah and she lit the neiros in the dining room, she took care of the whole house. Her berachah covers all of the neiros that are going to be lit in the house. So if the husband now wants to go to one of the rooms and light a nair in one of the rooms, he doesn't have to make a berachah. That nair was already covered by the berachah of the wife. Okay, now we're going to see some different scenarios here in the Mechaber, and by each scenario, we're going to have to plug in this understanding. The understanding that there's this dual chiyuv, so to speak, of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. There's the chiyuv haguf, which is that you have to be mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros. Then there's also the technical chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos, which is the Shalom Bayis aspect, that the rooms have to be lit. Against this backdrop, let's take a look here at Sivav, bottom line, Lamed Vav Amud Beis, near the end of the line. Says the Mechaber, Bacharim haholchim lilmoid chutz lebeisam. Bacharim that leave home and they're going to learn. They're going away from home and they're going to wherever the Rebbe is, and they're going to have rooms wherever the Rebbe is, or they're going to have apartments wherever the Rebbe is. They're away from home. Now, the Mishnah Berurah tells us that this Mechaber is not talking about what you just thought it's talking about. This is not talking about our Bacharim, our single, unmarried Bacharim that go away to yeshiva. No, the Mishnah Berurah says this is talking about married people. So we have a married man who is now leaving home. Maybe he's going for Yarchei Kala. He's leaving home, and he's going away, and he's going to learn somewhere. And he's going to have his own private accommodations. He's renting a room, he's renting an apartment, whatever it is. Okay, says the Mechaber like this. Bacharim haholchim lilmoid chutz lebeisam. These married fellows who are leaving home, and they're going to have private accommodations, tzrichim lahadlik ner Shabbos bechadram. They have to light a ner Shabbos in their private accommodation, in their private room, or in their private apartment, ulevarichalov, and they have to make a berachah. Okay, let's analyze this for a moment. So, this married man is away from home. It's now Erev Shabbos. He has this dual chiyuv on him. He has one chiyuv which is a chayvas haguf, which is a mitzvah that he has to be mekayim. He has to be mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros. That chiyuv, his wife could fulfill for him. His wife is at home, in their shared marital home, When his wife makes the bracha and sins licht in the dining room in his house, she is being moitzi him his chiv of Hadlakas Neiros of Shabbos, the chiv which is a chayvus haguf. But then there's the other chiv of Hadlakas Neiros of Shabbos, which is the technical aspect of Shalom Bayis. The bottom line is, where he has his own private accommodation, he has to have a light in his room. If he doesn't have a light in his room, then there's not going to be Shalom Bayis. He's going to be walking around, stepping on things, bumping into things, and stubbing his toe. So even though his wife is covering his Chiyuv Haguf by lighting in his house, she's not covering the requirement of Shalom Bayis. Therefore, where he has his private accommodations, he still has to light. And since he has a Chiyuv to light because of Shalom Bayis, he can make a bracha. So he lights with a bracha. That's the halacha that the Mechaber says over here. Let's read it again inside. Bachurim haholchim lilmoid chutz lebeisam. These married fellows that are going away from home to go learn, and they have their own private accommodations. That's how the Mishnah Berurah explains this. Tzrichim lahadlik ner Shabbos bechadram. They have to light ner shel Shabbos in their private accommodations. Why? Not because of the chiyuv haguf. The chiyuv haguf is being covered by the wife that's back at home. But they have a chiyuv to light because of Shalom Bayis. And therefore they light ulevarech alav and they make a bracha. But, continues the Mechaber, aval mishu eitzel ishtay, but somebody who's home together with his wife, ain't tzarich lahadlik bechadroi, let's say he has his own room at home. For whatever reason, his wife has a bedroom and he has a bedroom. So he has his own bedroom that only he sleeps in. It needs an air because of Shalom Bayis. When he lights an air in that room, does he have to make a bracha? No, he doesn't have to make a bracha. Why not? What's the difference between this case and the first case? The difference is very simple, says the Biur Halacha. When you're talking about at home, when you're at home in one house together with your wife, so then when your wife makes the bracha and sins licht, she covers the entire home. Now, you have a private room inside the home, but it's inside the home. It's in the home together with your wife. Now, even though you do need to light an air in that room because of Shalom Bayis, so you shouldn't stub your toe, you don't have to make a bracha because your wife's bracha covered you. That's what the Mechaber says here. Somebody who's home together with his wife, ain't tzarich lahadlik bechadroi ulevarech alav. He doesn't have to light inside his room and make a bracha. He has to light because his room needs an air, but he doesn't have to make a bracha. Why? Because his wife's bracha covers the entire home. So again, we have two different cases here in the Mechaber. Case number one is somebody is away from home. He has a private room away from home. He lives in Borough Park, and he went now to Eretz Yisrael for Yarchei Kala to the Mir in Yerushalayim, and he has a private dira. He has two chiyuvim. His chayvas haguf, his chiyuv to be yoytze the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos, his wife is covering at home. But he has another chiyuv. Where he is, the room has to be well lit for Shabbos, Shalom Bayis. So he needs an air. He has to light an air. How about a bracha? Can his wife cover his bracha? No. His wife is 6,000 miles away in a different house. Her bracha cannot cover his hadlaka in Beis Yisrael in Yerushalayim. So since he has to light for Shalom Bayis purposes, and his wife can't cover his bracha, he has to light together with a bracha. That's halacha number one. Halacha number two over here in Sivav is he's not away from home. He's home. He's in his home together with his wife. But he happens to have his own room. Okay, his own room, it needs a licht. Again, it needs a licht because of Shalom Bayis. So he has to light in his room. But does he have to make a bracha? No. Why? Because since he's in the home together with his wife's bracha covers the entire home. This is the explanation of this sif, and I don't have time to read it inside, but you could see this very beautifully laid out in Biur Halacha Dibra Maschil Bachurim on Lamid Vav Amid Beis. Now let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Chav Ches, all the way at the bottom of Lamid Vav Amid Beis. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Bachurim. Hainu sheyesh lehem nashim. We're talking here about married fellows who have wives. Elo sheholchid chutz lebeisam, but they're away from home. Now, in this scenario, even though the wife is lighting at home, he can't be covered by his wife's berachah because he has his own private accommodations away from home. His wife's berachah at home cannot cover his lighting here, 100 miles away, or 5 miles away, or 2 miles away. He's in a different home. Since he's in a different home, his wife's berachah at home cannot cover his lighting over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kolshkein, if this person is not married, well then of course he has to light. You know why? Because he has a chiyuv aguf. He has a chiyuv mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros. When you're married, so your wife at home is covering you for your mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. So you don't have that issue. The issue that you have is shalom bayis. But if you're not married, so then you have a chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos that you need to cover. So, Mishnah Berurah is Kanchav Tes Bechadram. This person who's traveling away from home has to light in his room. Even if he only has these quarters, these private accommodations for sleeping. And he's eating in a different house. The point of the Mishnah Berurah is, we said one of the reasons we require Neiros Shabbos is because of Einig V'Simcha, you have to have light by the Suda. Now, what if this person is eating somewhere else? So where he's eating, there are going to be neiros. He's only going home to sleep to his private accommodations. Still, he has to light. Why? Shalom bayis. So that when he's walking around in his room where he sleeps, he shouldn't stub his toe. Ois cotton limud ulevarichalov. And when this fellow lights, he has to make a berachah. The Hadlakas Neiros chayva mishum shalom bayis shelo yikashel be'etzoi be'even. Because one of the reasons we have a chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos is because of shalom bayis, that you should stub your toe. So he has to light an air. And the neiros have to be long enough, or they have to have enough oil. So again, let's say this person is away, he's learning somewhere, he's going to eat the Suda by somebody's house, and then he's going to come home to go to sleep. Well, in that case, when he lights Neiros Erev Shabbos, he has to make sure that he uses big enough candles or enough oil so that the Neiros is still going to be burning when he comes home. Because ubalavachi, if not, if the neiros are going to be out by the time he comes home, berachah levatala, then it would be a berachah levatala. What did he accomplish with his neiros? If he's lighting neiros Erev Shabbos, and then he's leaving, and he's going to daven, and then he's going to eat in somebody's house, and then he's going to go to a shir, and then he's going to come home when the neiros are out, what did the neiros do for him? They didn't do anything for him. So how did he make a bracha on them on Erev Shabbos? Okay. Now the Mishnah Berurah gives us another scenario. Now this scenario has in some ways it's the same as the first halacha here in Sevav, but in one way it's very, very different. So let's take a look at the scenario and then let's plug in the rules and see what we come up with. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Val ha-yeridim. Yeridim are, let's say, peddlers. This means there are people who sell wares, and they get together to go to a market. There's going to be a shuk. So there's going to be a shuk. There's going to be a marketplace for 2 weeks. So somebody packed up his wares. He went traveling to the marketplace, and now he's away from home, and he's going to be staying somewhere else, let's say for 2 Shabbosim or 3 Shabbosim. So he's going to be away from home. Okay. Vala yeridim shemes achsdim harbe balabatim becheder echad. Oh. The way this case is different than the first case of Sevav is, this person does not have private accommodations. This person is sharing his accommodations with his fellow peddlers that all came together to the marketplace. So he doesn't have his own private room. He's sharing his accommodations with others. Ve'eina balabayis imahem bechadram. And the balabayis of the home, the person who owns these accommodations, is not with them. Okay, so let's break this down. What was the first halacha of Sifav? The first halacha of Sifav was, you have a married man, he's not home, he's away. He's staying in private accommodations somewhere else other than his home. Okay, let's analyze the chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. Okay, number one, he has a chiyuv haguf. He has to be b'kaim the mitzvah of Neiros shel Shabbos. Check, no problem. His wife is lighting back at home. She's moitzi him in the chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. That's taken care of. Chiyuv number two, where he is, he has private accommodations that need to be well lit because of shalom bayis. Oh, so now he has a chiyuv hadlaka. He has a chiyuv hadlaka. He has to light neiros. Okay, so he's going to light neiros. How about the berachah? He has to make a berachah. Why? Because his wife, who's back at home, can't cover him with a berachah. So he has to make his own berachah. That was the first halach of sivav. Now let's plug in this case. All right, we have a married fellow who's away from home. He's over at the shuk. He's over at the place where they have the marketplace. He has accommodations, but they're not private accommodations. Okay. Chiyuv haguf, his wife is covering him back at home. No problem. Shalom bayis, well, the room that he's in has to have neiros in it, so he does have a chiyuv hadlaka, because where he is, there has to be shalom bayis, but he doesn't have private accommodations. There's 6 or 7 other balabatim who are all in the same boat as he is, and they're all sharing these accommodations together. Now what? They all have a chiyuv of hadlaka because of shalom bayis. But what should they do? Should each one of them light? That doesn't seem to make sense. Because once one person lights, you already took care of the need of shalom bayis. Now the house is already lit. Now there doesn't seem to be a need for shalom bayis anymore. So it doesn't seem appropriate that each one of them should make a berachah and light. That doesn't seem to make sense. But somebody has to light. Somebody has to light. Who should light? My only high may high. Who says that? Who should it be? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, or Naphtali? Which one of them should light? They all have an equal chiyuv. And they can't, it doesn't seem that they could all do it. Because once one does it, shalom bayis is already taken care of. So says the Mishnah Berurah like this. The owner of the accommodation is not with them. Now that's very important. Because if the owner of the accommodation would be with them, then the chiyuv would be chal on him. It's his house. So then the chiyuv would be on him. So then he would be the one to make the berachah, and he would be the one to light. He would make the berachah, he would light, and then everybody is covered. Why? Because their chiyuv haguf is covered by their wife back at home. The chiyuv of shalom bayis is covered by the balabayis. The balabayis made the berachah, he lit. Everybody is good. Everybody's taken care of. But we're talking about a case over here. The ein ha-balabayis Siman b'chadram. The balabayis is not there. So now what do? Says the Mishnah Berurah, chal aleim chayvas hadlaka b'bracha. They do have a chiyuv of hadlaka with a bracha. Afilu im nishayim adlikin b'veisam. Even if their wives are lighting back at home, because the fact that the wife is lighting back at home only covers their chiyuv haguf. It doesn't cover them for shalom bayis. So they have a chiyuv hadlaka with a bracha for shalom bayis, but not everyone could light. They can't all light and all make brachas. So what do? Says the Mishnah Berurah, I'll tell you what you do. Al-Kain, to kriach out of all the issues over here, yishtatvu kulam, they should all make a partnership. What does that mean? They should all chip in to the cost of the candle. They should all chip in to the cost of the oil for the ner. V'yadlik echad, and one of them should light, v'yavarech, and make the bracha, v'yechaven lahoitzi kulam beberachasai, and have kavanah to be moitzi everybody. V'gam heim yechavnu lotzeis beberachasai, and now everybody's taken care of. Why is everybody taken care of? Very simple. Each one of them, their individual chayvas haguf, the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos, was taken care of by their wives back at home. Shalom bayis, one person lit, and now the room is lit up, so shalom bayis is taken care of. And each one of them was fulfilled their chiyuv of lighting for shalom bayis and making a bracha by chipping into the cost of the ner, and by answering amen and having in mind to be yotze with the bracha of the madlik. Now, like we spoke at earlier, if the balabayis of this accommodation, if the owner of the room would be together with all of the other peddlers, then ain't tzarich leishtatef imay bepriti. Then they wouldn't have to chip in for the cost of the candle. Why? Because if the owner is there, then the chiyuv is chal on him. He's in a room that he owns, and he has a chiyuv hadlaka, either only because of shalom bayis, because his wife is also at home lighting, or maybe he doesn't have a wife, whatever it is, so he has a chiyuv haguf that he has to fulfill, but he's the balabas. If he's the balabas, the chiyuv is chal on him. So he'll light, he'll make a bracha and he'll light. And then everybody else is taken care of. Their chiyuv haguf is taken care of by their wife back home, and shalom bayis is taken care of by the fact that the balabayis lit up the room by lighting. Then the Mechaber said, but at home, if you're at home together with your wife and you have your own private bedroom, yes, you have to light in your private bedroom because of shalom bayis, but you don't have to make a bracha. Why? Because since you're at home together with your wife's bracha covers the entire house. But to light in your private bedroom, tzarech, you have to light. Even if you're not going to eat in that room. So you shouldn't stub your toe. And you should walk around stepping on Lego and tripping. So yes, there's a chiyuv hadlaka. You have to light an air in your own private bedroom, but you don't have to make a bracha because your wife's bracha covered you since you're at home together with your wife. Okay, that was the very complicated Siv Vav. Now we go to Siv Zayin. Says the Mechaber 3 lines down. Oyreach she'ein loy cheder meyuchad. Let's say you have a guest who does not have his own private accommodations. So somebody's away from home. He's staying in a room somewhere, but he doesn't have his own private accommodations. He's staying in a room that is also being used by the balabayis of the house. Okay? Oyreach she'ein lo cheder meyuchad. V'gam ein madlikin olav beveisoi. But he does not have a wife back at home that's lighting for him. Maybe this fellow is an alman. He doesn't have a wife. Or maybe he's a bacher. He was never married. But the bottom line is he doesn't have a wife back at home that's lighting for him. So we have a single man who does not have a wife lighting for him. He's a guest in somebody's house, but he doesn't have private accommodations. They gave him a bed, but the balabayis is using the room also. The balabayis walks in and out. Maybe he's sleeping in the owner of the house's study. The owner of the house has a study that has a bed in it. So he doesn't have a cheder miyuchad. He doesn't have his own private accommodations. So now let's take everything that we've learned, everything that we understand about the rules of Hadlakas Neiros, and let's plug it into this scenario. Well, this fellow, this unmarried fellow, has a chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. He has a mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos that he has to be mekayim. Does he have a wife taking care of it for him? No. So he has a chiyuv haguf. He has to take care of his chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. Okay, so that's chiyuv number one. How about shalom bayis? Well, a shalom bayis chiyuv he doesn't have. You know why? Because even though he's sleeping in a room in a house, the balabayis of the house is using that room. So the chiyuv of shalom bayis is not on the guest. The chiyuv of shalom bayis is on the owner of the house. So this guest has no chiyuv of hadlaka for the purposes of shalom bayis. So the only chiyuv that he has is the chayvas haguf of being mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. So in that case, what does the Mechaber say? He doesn't have his own private room. His room is being used by the balabayis, so he doesn't have a chiyuv of shalom bayis. The chiyuv of shalom bayis is on the owner of the house. The gam ein madlikin love beveisai, but he doesn't have a wife back at home lighting for him. So therefore, he does have the chiyuv haguf, the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. In that case, says the Mechaber, you know what he should do? Tzarech lehishtatef bepruta. He should go to the owner of the house. He should chip in to the cost of the candle or the cost of the wick or whatever it is. He should chip in to the cost of the Neiros shel Shabbos. And the balabayis of the house or the wife of the house, the woman of the house, will light for him and cover his chayvas haguf of Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut and lamed beis. In this scenario, this guest does not have private accommodations. But if he did have private accommodations, tzarech lahadlik ulevarich. He would have to light, and he would have to make a bracha. Afilu im adlikin love beveisoi, even if he has a wife lighting for him back at home, the chanal b'sivav, because that would be the first scenario of sivav. He has his own private accommodations. He has a chiyuv of hadlaka for shalom bayis, so he has to light with a bracha. Ois kat lamed gimel. In this case, the eitzah is lihishtatef. He has to join in. He has to chip into the cost of the neiros, and the balabayis, or the woman of the household, will cover his chiyuv aguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ubereish Siman Tafresh Ayin Zayin, in Hilchas Chanukah in Siman Tafresh Ayin Zayin, where we're discussing Neiros Shel Chanukah, Hevi HaMagen Avram B'Shem Tshuvas Marshal, the Magen Avram brings down from the Tshuvas Rashal, the Gam HaBacharim Tzvichen Lehishtatef, that single Bacharim, let's say Bacharim in Yeshiva, they have to be Mishtatef in the Neiros Shel Chanukah. Umasik Sham, the Efshe Dainu Davka Kishoichel B'fnei Atzmai. Maybe it's talking there about Neiros Shel Shabbos, actually. But the Magen Avram says maybe that's only true if the Bacharim eat alone. Avalim Samach al Shulchan Balabayas. But if the Bacharim go ahead and they eat together with the Balabatim, Hareyu B'chlal B'nei Beisai, then their chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros is covered by the Balabayas of the house, Ayin Sham. In this case over here in Siv Zion, the Mechaber said that the person should chip in. He doesn't necessarily have to give him a nickel to chip into the cost of the oil or the cost of the candle. The Balabais could tell him, I'm going to give you a portion in the Neiros Shel Shabbos for nothing. I'm going to give it to you b'matana. Okay. Next scenario, Sif Ches, 4 lines down on Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. This one point I want to make. Based on everything that we just learned, let me give you an interesting scenario, and let's see what we come up with. What happens if a Yid is traveling away from home? Somebody went on a business trip that was supposed to be Wednesday and Thursday, and he was supposed to be back home for Shabbos. So he was away Wednesday, he was away Thursday, Friday there's a hurricane, his flight gets canceled, and it turns out that he's going to be away from home for Shabbos. Okay, where is he going to be for Shabbos? He checks into a hotel. He's in the middle of Hutzenplatz. He checks into a hotel for Shabbos. He's all alone in a hotel for Shabbos. What happens now with the chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos? Well, let's analyze it. Again, his chiyuv aguf to be mekayim the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos, no problem. His wife is at home. His wife is going to make a bracha and sin Shabbos licht. And by making a bracha and lighting Shabbos licht back at home, she covers his chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos. So as far as the chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos, this gentleman is covered. He's in a Hilton in Jacksonville or South Carolina, but his chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros Shel Shabbos is covered by his wife making a bracha and lighting back at home. All right, now this sounds like the exact scenario of the first halach of Sivav. He's in a Hilton in North Carolina. How about the chiyuv to have a light in the room because of shalom bayis? We learned that a married fellow is away from home. He has private accommodations. Well, a suite in the Hilton is definitely private accommodations. So l'chayra, he has a chiyuv of hadlaka for shalom bayis, and l'chayra you should make a bracha. I'm not so sure about it. And the reason I'm not so sure about it is, I mentioned in the beginning of this year, do we light neiros in every room in our house? No, we don't. Why? Because they're not dark. Because we have so much light coming from everything that we don't need a nair in every room because of shalom bayis. So this person who's in a suite in the Hilton in South Carolina, does he need a nair for shalom bayis? He doesn't need an air for shalom bayis. He's not going to step on anything. He's going to leave on the light in the Beis HaKisei. He's going to leave on the light in the kitchenette. There's light coming from the clock. There's light coming from the smoke detector. There's light coming from here and there and from the iPhone and from everything else. There's light pollution coming in from the window. Why does he need a licht for shalom bayis? He doesn't need a licht for shalom bayis. So how could he go light and make a bracha? It seems to me that in such a scenario, this person would not light Shabbos licht. His chiyuv aguf would be covered by his wife back at home. Chiyuv shalom bayis, l'chayri he doesn't have. I don't see room to light with a bracha. You want to tell me a light without a bracha? Maybe. Light with a bracha, I mamish can't hear it. If you're in such a case, please ask your Rav for a psak halacha, what you should do. I don't want you to be samech on my psak. You have a Rav, ask your Rav and get a psak from your Rav. Aval nirali, that there's absolutely no room to go ahead and light together with a bracha. Libi noikfi, that to light together with a bracha would even be a bracha levatala. Okay, now we go to Sifches. Boy, oh boy, we still have a lot to cover over here. Sifches. Shnayim oy shloisha balibatim oichlim b'mokaim echad. You have 2 or 3 balabatim, or 2 or 3 families that are all eating together somewhere. Okay, so everybody has their own chiyuv aguf, to light neiros. You have a chiyuv of einig v'simcha, that there should be light by the suda. Well, once one person lights, there is going to be light by the suda. There are those that say, okay, everybody will light their own licht, and everybody will make their own bracha. Or another very common scenario. You're home, and you have 2 of your married couples coming over for Shabbos, and so you have 2 daughter-in-laws, or you have a married daughter and a daughter-in-law, or 2 married daughters, and you're all eating together in your dining room, and your wife is going to tzid licht. So as far as, your chiyuv aguf and your family's chiyuv aguf, the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neiros Shabbos, your wife is making a bracha, she's taking care of that. Now, how about your married couples? So what are they going to do? They're also going to light in the same dining room? They're going to light and make a bracha over there also? So that's the topic here of Sifches. Says the Mechaber, some say that yes, everybody will make a bracha over their own licht. But there are those that disagree. And we'll explain this in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mechaber paskins that it would be proper to be very worried about Safek brachas lahakal. You're making a bracha, you be being moitzi shem shamayim, and over here there's a tzad that you shouldn't make a bracha, because l'chayra, once one person lit, does the inyan of einig v'simcha to have light by the Suda is already taken care of. The inyan of shalom bayis, as far as the room that you're in, is also taken care of once somebody lights. The inyan of Einik Shabbos in the other rooms of the house, l'chayra, when the woman of the house made the bracha, she covered the whole house. Now you'll tell me that the couples have a room that's miyuchad for themselves. Says the Mechaber, v'nachal yizar b'savik brachas v'lo yivarch ala echad. Hagah, the Ramah says, aval anu ein noyeg in kain. We're not noyeg, like the Mechaber says, not to make a bracha. We're noyeg that each one makes a bracha over their own leichter, over their own licht. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. It says the Mishnah Berurah, shekol echad mevarach. The first man Yamar brought by the Mechaber says everybody makes a bracha. The chol mad mitoisef oira, probably demisvasef. The chol mad demisvasef oira, because all of the additional light, yesh ba shalom bayis v'simcha yisera, lahanas oira b'chol zavis v'zavis. L'chayra, by adding light, the more candles there are, the more light you generate, the light is going to spread out further. It's going to light up more corners of the house. Again, think back to the day when this was the light in the room. You didn't have a chandelier. So you have more licht, the room is going to be brighter. There's going to be more einig v'simcha. There's also going to be more shalom bayis, because the light is going to spread around more. Therefore, yesh oimrim, that yes, everybody can make a bracha on their own licht. But there are those who disagree. Their rationale is you already have or from the light that was done by the first one. How could you go now light and make a bracha? For what? For what purpose? Now, I'm the way I'm understanding this, nobody is saying, hey, wait a second, each one of you has to cover your own chiyuv of Hadlakas Neiros Shabbos. I think pshat is, I was neglectful that I didn't check into this more carefully. I believe pshat over here is that since you're all eating together and you're all in one house, the chiyuv haguf of Hadlakas Neiros is being covered by the balabayas of the house, or by the woman of the house. She's covering the chiyuv haguf. I think that's accurate. B'yetz Hashem, I'm going to check into it. Okay, the Ramah said, "Anu ein naigin kain elikadei rishayna." We paskin like the day rishayna that each one does light on their own menorah. The Kosav Magen Avraham B'Shem Ashla. However, the Magen Avraham writes in the name of the Shla, but what you should not do is have one candelabra and say, okay, Rivki, you light that branch, Leah, you light that branch, I'll light this branch, and we'll all make brachas on our own branches of the candelabra. That you should not do. Each one should have their own leichter. And the rationale of that Mandiyarma, the rationale of that Magen Avraham is that when you have more Neiros on different branches of one candelabra, we don't see that as really being additional light, since it's all on one menorah. Whereas if you have one leichter here, and one leichter here, and one leichter here, it's throwing light over a greater area. However, v'yesh b'kilin gam bazeh, there are those that are makel and say that you could make a bracha on individual branches of a candelabra. The Kosav of Pri Begadim, the Pri Begadim writes, the Yesh Lispach al zeh b'noshim aniyos she'en lehem kiyam menorah achas. If you're dealing with people that don't have a lot of financial resources, so they only have one menorah, then we'll be makel and we'll say that yes, multiple people can make individual brachas on individual branches of a candelabra. Ois Katan Lamed Ches, the Ramah said, Anu ein noeg in kain, ve'em yesh le'echad mehen cheder ha'meyuchad loi. And now, let's say again, you have these couples in the house, and they have a cheder meyuchad, right? So you're telling one couple, you take the guest suite downstairs in the basement. So now that's a cheder meyuchad for them. If it's a cheder meyuchad for them, then l'chayra, they have a chiyuv of hadlaka in that room for shalom bayis. The balabayas of the house no longer has a chiyuv of adlaka in that room for shalom bayis because he's removed himself from that room. He gave it over to the couple. It's a cheder miyuchad for the couple. Now we're back to the first halach of sivav. You have a cheder miyuchad, you have a chiyuv of adlaka for shalom bayis in that room. So v'im yesh le'echad mehem cheder ha'miyuchad loi, af al pisha eino oichel sham, even though you're not eating there, so there's no chiyuv of hadlaka mitam oinig v'simcha for the suda, ve'eino mishtamish sham shum tzarech achila, l'kul yamu yachal avarik sham, you zicha can make a bracha over there, v'chanal b'sivav, because you have a chiyuv of shalom bayis, which I don't know that chiyuv exists nowadays. Okay, let's go to Sif Tes. Wow. Habadlikin bezavis habayis. Let's say somebody lights inside the house. V'oichle b'chotzer, but he wants to eat outside. So somebody lit inside by the dining room, and now they decide they want to eat outside on the patio. Says the Mechaber, Im einan neiros aruchos, if the candles are not long enough, or you don't have enough oil or fuel in the licht, shedolkos ad halayla, so that they will continue and they'll still be burning after the Suda is over and you come back into the house, then have your berachah of Hatorah. Then when you lit those licht, it was a berachah of Hatorah. The scenario of the Mechaber is, remember, back in the day, it was even more common than it is nowadays that they made early Shabbos. They took in Shabbos right after Plag HaMincha and they davened Kabbalah Shabbos and Ma'ariv and they came home and they had the Suda. They had the Suda while it was still light. So when did they light the Neiros? They lit the Neiros when it was light outside. So when it was light outside after Plag, the woman went and she made a bracha, and she went and she lit her Shabbos Neiros. Then they didn't eat by the Neiros. They ate outside in the patio. So did they have Hana from the Neiros when they were eating? No. They ate on the patio. The Neiros are inside in the dining room. Now, if there isn't enough fuel in those licht, when they come inside after the Suda and it's dark outside, they're not getting any hana from the Neiros because the Neiros are out. So then what did they get from the Neiros? They didn't get oinig v'simcha by the Suda because they ate outside on the patio. They didn't get shalom bayis when they came back inside because the Neiros are out already. So in that case, it was a berachah of Hatorah. Now, are you allowed to do this? Are you allowed to light the licht inside in the dining room and then go eat outside in the patio? Says the Mishnah Berurah, is Katan Lamed Tes. V'oichlin, Eilek Amon, Seif Siman Reisha, and Gimel, B'Magen Avram, Sif Katan Tes Vav, De'in Mutter Lechel B'Chotzer. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to leave the Neiros in the dining room and go eat outside in the patio. Rak dafka b'mitztar harbe bebeisai. Unless for some reason you're mitztar, if you eat in the house. Mishum zvuvim. Maybe there are flies or bugs inside the house. Or maybe nowadays, maybe it's during the summer, the air conditioning blew, and it's stifling hot inside, and it's cooler outside, so you're mitztar inside, and you're more comfortable outside, then you're allowed to go eat outside and go eat away from the neiros. Otherwise, you're mechuyev to eat where the neiros are. By Kiddush, you're supposed to be able to see the neiros. You're supposed to be mekadesh by the neiros. You're supposed to look at the neiros when you make the berachah of Kiddush. So, lichatchila, you're supposed to eat where the neiros are. You don't leave the Neiros inside and go eat outside unless you're mitztar. V'ayin Mishnah Berurah mashakasav dusham. He sends us to the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat and Lamed Beis over there in Siman Reisha and Gimel, where the Mishnah Berurah brings down that if you are mitztar and you do have to eat outside away from the Neiros, you should at least make Kiddush by the Neiros and then wash and eat something by the Neiros before you go outside. You want to eat outside. Mashma, the implication of the mechaber is, if you eat inside the house by the Neiros, then then even if they don't burn into the night, it's okay. And it's not a berachah of Hatorah. Where is the mechaber mashma this way? Well, what did the mechaber say? The mechaber said, if you light inside and go out to the patio, and you don't have neiros that are long enough that they're still going to be burning when you come inside, then it's a berachah of Hatorah. Okay, how about if I eat inside and I don't have neiros that are long enough to still be burning after the Suda? Then it's not a berachah of Hatorah. Why not? Why not? When you ate the Suda, it was light outside. When you finished the Suda, the neiros went out. Now it's dark. You didn't get any shalom bayis from the neiros. You didn't even really get any light from the neiros. Because when you ate the Suda, it was light outside. So you had plenty of light. So what did the neiros do for you? The answer is, even though it was light outside when you ate the Suda, since you ate the Suda by the neiros, that's considered getting hana from the neiros. Because the riboy of the neiros, that alone is considered a hana. Let's see this inside in the Mishnah Berurah. Mashmadim oichel babayis. If you eat inside the house by the neiros, av she'ein delekas ad halayla, even if the neiros aren't going to be burning until it's dark outside, sagi, that would be enough, and that wouldn't be a shayla of a berachah of Hatorah. V'lo heavy berachah of Hatorah. Even though they're going to burn out. Sha'av sha'adayin yoim, because even though it's still day when you were eating the Suda by the neiros, yesh loy hana v'simcha b'shas achilim in ha-neiros. And the proof to this is, people, when they're making a choshev a Suda, people make sheva brachas in the middle of the day, and afternoon sheva brachas, guess what? They light neiros. They put neiros in the middle of the table. So obviously there is a hana from having the neiros by the Suda, even though it's light outside. So if you eat inside by the neiros, even if the neiros go out by the end of the Suda, before it's dark outside, you still got hana from the neiros, and therefore there's no shayla berachah of Hatorah. But mitzvah min hamuvcher sheyas neiros aruchai shiudalkais ad halayla. But it is a mitzvah min hamuvcher that even when you eat by the neiros, you should make sure to have neiros that are long enough that they will still be burning at night. Av sheroitz alecho miba'od yom. Oiskat mem aleph have a berachah of Hatorah shekevet she'eni yakal asay shum tashmish etzlan. Because in the case where you lit while it was light outside, you went outside to the patio and you ate away from the neiros, and then by the time you came back in, by the time it was dark, the neiros went out. In that case, you never did anything by the neiros. You never got any hana from the neiros. You're not getting the benefit of shalom bayis from these neiros. They were out by the time it was dark outside. And you didn't get the hana of the Suda because you ate the Suda on the patio. Less baby shum shalom bayis. You didn't get any shalom bayis from these neiros. But if in the house when you lit, it was a little dark in the house, let's say you lit on Erev Shabbos, and it's true, it was light outside when you lit. But inside the house, it was dim, and you caught the gefilte fish by the light of the neiros. Okay, so then you got hana from the neiros. Leka isura, then there's no iser. It's not a berachah of Hatorah. Av she'ein delekas ad halayla v'av she'oichel b'chotzer. Okay, let's take a look here at Sif Yud. Now, Sif Yud looks very long. Don't get so scared. There's very little Mishnah Berurah here. on Sif Yud, and this should go very quickly. Says the Mechaber like this: Labal halachos gedolos, according to the Bahag, Kevan shehidlik ner shel Shabbos. Once you light the Neiros of Shabbos, Cholol of Shabbos, that brings in Shabbos, the Nesar b'malacha, and now all malacha becomes Aser. What does the Bahag say? The Bahag's rationale is as follows: lighting the Neiros shel Shabbos, that's what marks the beginning of Shabbos, and that's the last malacha that you do before Shabbos. You light the Neiros shel Shabbos. You make a berachah lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. That is the line of demarcation. That brings in Shabbos, and that constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos. That's the sheet of the Bahag. Val Pizeh, and based on this Bahag, Neihagois ktsas noshim, some women have the minig, sha'acha sheberchu v'hidliku haneros, once they go ahead and they light Neiros, so now that's Kabbalah Shabbos. They lit Neiros, that's Kabbalah Shabbos. Now I want you to imagine this. Woman holding a match. She went, she lit the Neiros. Now, by lighting the Neiros, she was Makabel Shabbos. She's holding a lit match. What is she going to do with it? She can't blow it out. It's Shabbos. She was Makabel Shabbos. So what do? Mashlichais la'aretz, they just drop it on the ground. Mashlichais la'aretz hapsila, they drop onto the ground the wick or the match that they were using to light the Neiros, shebiyadan, that they were holding, shidlikuba, that they used to light the Neiros, ve'ein mechabel saisa, but they don't blow it out. Why don't they blow it out? Because they were Makabel Shabbos. Once they were Makabel Shabbos, they can't blow it out. So what do? They just drop it. That's the first opinion here. The Yeshayimrim. Then there are those that say that even according to the Bahag, who holds that Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos, the Yeshayimrim, she'masne koidim shidlika, that if a woman makes a Tanai before she lights, she'ena mekabel Shabbos at sheyomer achazon baruchu, if a woman makes a Tanai and she says, my lighting should not be Kabbalah Shabbos, I'm not making Kabbalah Shabbos until in Shul they go ahead and they start Ma'ariv with Baruchu, so they're davening Ma'ariv of Friday night of Shabbos, or they say Mizmar Shir, or they say Boy V'Shalom, but I'm not being Kabbalah Shabbos with my Hadlaka, Moyel, that Tanai works. And then Shabbos wouldn't come in until the man on Kabbalah Shabbos in davening, or obviously until it rolls around to Ben Hashmash's time. If it rolls around to Ben Hashmash's time, it's Shabbos whether you like it or not. V'yeshayim. Then there's another opinion, is the Shitas HaRosh. V'yeshayim, there's another opinion. I'm sorry, this is not the Rosh. V'yeshayim is the Kolbay. V'yeshayim, there are those that say, She'ein Ma'ayallah. So again, you have the Bahag. The Shitas HaBahag is that Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos, the berachah, the Hadlaka, that's already... There's a lot of words written on this, but Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos, according to the Bahag, that is Kabbalah Shabbos. Then we have a difference of opinion in the sheet of the Bahag. Fine, the Bahag says that Hadlakas Neiros equals Kabbalah Shabbos, but could you make it tonight? There are those that say you can make it tonight. I don't want my Hadlakas Neiros to constitute Kabbalah Shabbos. I'm not being Kabbalah Shabbos either until it's Ben Hashmashis and it's automatically Shabbos, or until in Shul they start davening Ma'ariv, they say Mizmar Shir, Boy V'Shalom, I'm only being Kabbalah Shabbos then. So there are those that say that a Tanai works, and there are those that say that a Tanai doesn't work. Then there's the Shitas HaRosh. V'yesh cholkim al bal halachos gedolos. Then there are those that disagree with this Bahag completely. And they say, She'ein Kabbalah Shabbos totally by Hadlakas Ner. That Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos has nothing to do with Kabbalah Shabbos. Ela b'tfilas arvis. What makes Kabbalah Shabbos? Ma'ariv. That's what makes Kabbalah Shabbos. She'keven she'amar achazon baruchu. Once the chazan says baruchu at the beginning of Ma'ariv shel Shabbos, hakol parshid mi malachtam. That's when everybody stops doing malacha, and that is what makes Kabbalah Shabbos. Uladidan by us. We have the minig of saying Mizmar Shir. That constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos the same way. By them, it was Baruch at the beginning of Ma'ariv. The Mishnah Berurah told us earlier, nowadays it's Boy V'Shalom by Lechadoidi. Says the Ramah, Hagah, V'aminig, the accepted minig is, Sha'oisa Isha Hamadlekes, that the woman who lights, Mekabel Shabbos Ba'adlaka. For the woman who lights, Har Hadlakas Neiros is Kabbalah Shabbos, im loisha tis netchila, unless she makes a Tanai. But if she makes a Tanai, the Tanai works. Va'afilu Tanai balev sagi, and it doesn't have to be a verbal Tanai. She could just have it in mind. Aval shar b'nei abayis mutar b'malach baruch. But for everybody else, Kabbalah Shabbos is Ma'ariv. So again, let's just run through this very quickly. We have the Bahag. The Bahag says, Hadlakas Neiros shel Shabbos, that's Kabbalah Shabbos. Within the sheet of the Bahag, we have a machlokes. Fine. Hadlakas Neiros makes Kabbalah Shabbos, but could you make it tonight? There are those that say you could make it tonight. There are those that say you can't make it tonight. Then we have a Rosh that disagrees with the Bahag. The Rosh says, Hadlakas Neiros, nothing to do with Kabbalah Shabbos. What's Kabbalah Shabbos? Ma'ariv. Okay, by them it was Ma'ariv, it was Baruchu. By us, it's either Mizmor Shir, or nowadays when we have the minhag to say L'chadaidi, it's Ba'i V'Shalom. Comes along the Ramah is Machriya, the Ramah rules, and the Ramah says that the minhag nowadays is that the woman who lights, she's Mekabel Shabbos with her lighting, unless she makes it tonight. So she's Mekabel Shabbos with her Hadlaka, but if she wants to make it tonight, she can make it tonight, and the tonight doesn't have to be verbal. The tonight could even be believe, it could even be having it in mind. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut membez v'haminig. The Ramah was machriya, he ruled, and he said the minig is v'ema ishmadlik. Now, the Ramah said that when a woman lights, that constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos, unless she makes it tonight. How about a case where a woman is not lighting? How about a case where a man is lighting? A man lives alone. He doesn't have a wife, Nebuch. He lives alone in his own apartment. He has to light. Okay, and he's making a berachah. Is his lighting Kabbalah Shabbos? Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. Even in the case where a man has to light with a bracha, the minhag does not apply. For a man that lights, a man's lighting does not constitute Kabbalah Shabbos. When a woman lights, it does, because that was the established minhag. But on a man, there is no established minhag. So when a man lights, it does not constitute Kabbalah Shabbos. But the Mishnah Berurah says, really, when a man lights, he should make it tonight. When a woman lights, she's Mekabel Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this is the Mishnah Berurah L'Shitasai, who holds that a woman has a chiyuv to daven mincha. Not everybody holds that way, but the Mishnah Berurah holds very strongly that a woman is a chiyuv to daven mincha. V'tispala mincha tchila. Since a woman has a chiyuv to daven mincha, she should make sure to daven mincha before she tzins licht, before she lights. Da'el dekvar kibla Shabbos, because if we're saying that the minhag is that when a woman lights, that constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos, so when she's lighting, she's saying it's not Friday anymore. It's now Shabbos. Shuv ef shel ispal tefillah shachol. Now she can't daven a weekday mincha. Let's say there's no time. She no longer has time to daven mincha and then light. She should skip mincha and then daven a tashlumin. She should daven 2 ma'ariv. But again, this is the Mishnah Berurah she tasai that a woman has a chiv to daven mincha. Better, she should skip mincha, light, and then daven a tashlum and daven 2 ma'ariv. Better that than she should try to chap mincha and then come to a suffix of chil Shabbos because she's going to light too late. The Ramah said the established minhag is that when a woman lights, she's Mekabel Shabbos, unless she makes it tonight. So we see from the Ramah that a woman could light al tonight. A woman could light and make it tonight, and she's not being Mekabel Shabbos. But the Mishnah Berurah gives a very important caveat. Ve'ein lahas nois kiyem l'tzayrich. But he brings down from the Magen Avram, a woman should not make such a tanai unless there's a tzarech. Since we have these shittas that say that a tanai does not work, a woman should not make a tanai unless there's a tzarech. Okay, wow. That was some page. I hope that I gave it over clearly. I hope it was well understood. Again, I always say that the beauty over here of this style of shir is that you could always, hit pause and go back and listen again. Thank you so much for joining me for Limud Hatorah. Discussing Limud Hatorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh should send Yeshua's refuahs parnas and shidduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the Bias Koel Tzedek. B'mehera v'yameinu amen. Be well.